Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my full review of the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. I don't usually do this for episodes of Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown, but I just felt like this was way too big and way too much of a monumental episode of Monday Night Raw to not talk about it directly here on the YouTube channel. I'm also making this super late, so my editor is still sleeping, so I'm gonna edit this, so it's gonna be far less fancy than usual. So yeah, we're gonna go through the entire show. I'm gonna tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and where I think things can go from here. Because there was, and I don't think that this is an exaggeration, some groundbreaking, land-shifting things that happened in this episode of Monday Night Raw that could fundamentally change how the WWE operates over the next several months. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. Now, there is a much longer, more comprehensive version of this review over on Patreon with footage so that you can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about frame by frame. Over there, we upload all of the Raw reviews, the SmackDown reviews. We have all of the WrestleMania reviews over there, all with footage, plus a whole bunch of other videos that will never get uploaded here to the YouTube. So go check it out, patreon.com/SantiZap. But all right, let's jump into the review. The show kicks off with our brand new undisputed WWE champion, John Cena, cutting what I thought was the best heel promo since he turned heel. However, even though the heel promo was great, it wasn't really working in achieving its goal at getting you to hate John Cena, because everyone in that arena, just like last night at WrestleMania, was rooting for John Cena. There was even a point where the entire crowd was chanting, "We are sorry." We live in a timeline where John Cena has successfully gaslighted all of us into believing that everything that's happening is our own fault. But this was some great heel work from John Cena. When he got into the ring, he wasn't satisfied with how he was called to the ring by new ring announcer Mark Nash. Instead, he got Mark Nash to come back into the ring and announce him again as the never seen 17, the last real world champion, the greatest of all time, John Cena. And the face that John Cena made when Mark Nash was making that announcement was of pure just joy. But it was a pretty simple message from John Cena, that winners are the ones that dictate history, and that he is the winner, and that there are only 27 days left in his retirement tour, and in those 27 days, he is going to be taking that championship away from us. Not only does he get to make history as the winner, but he is walking away with history. He is walking away with the championship that Bruno Sammartino held, that Randy Orton held, that CM Punk has held, and he is taking it away from us. And he said, I know there'll be a new championship, but it'll never be this one, because John Cena is going to be the last real champion. And the promo ended in just simply the best possible way, with John Cena staring right into the camera saying, the last real champ is here. And right behind him, the most menacing face that I've ever seen, a pissed off looking Randy Orton attacks John Cena, hits him with an RKO. John Cena even says, oh shit, right before the RKO hits. And John Cena is down on the ground. Randy Orton is looking at his awesome work that he's left behind, and he grabs the undisputed championship, signaling that we will be getting John Cena versus Randy Orton at Backlash. And this is fantastic. Here's the thing. I was fine with the idea of Randy Orton being the last opponent for John Cena. I feel like he would have been the best available option to be John Cena's last dance partner. However, I actually kind of think that we need Randy Orton right now, because at the moment, right now, John Cena is way too fueled with nostalgia, and people want to root for John Cena because of nostalgia. So the best way to counter nostalgia is with even more nostalgia in Randy Orton, nostalgia that will be in his hometown in St. Louis. This will actually be a feud that John Cena will get fully, properly booed in from beginning to end. John Cena is going to be public enemy number one when he enters St. Louis. I think that this is the perfect decision and a great way to pivot and move away from how awful the ending of night 2 of WrestleMania ultimately was. I am excited for John Cena's retirement tour championship defenses. When coming off of the back of WrestleMania night 2, I was very concerned. So I think that this did everything that it needed to do. I'm really, really excited for John Cena and Randy Orton to run it back again, baby. After that great opening segment, we move on to the rematch for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships between new champions Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria taking on previous champions Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Right off the bat, I was angry because the champions both came out to Becky Lynch's theme. And I don't know why why Lyra Valkyria isn't getting her own entrance theme when she was literally a double champion, holding the women's tag titles and the Intercontinental champion, but yet you still have to come out as a lackey to Becky Lynch. I don't know, make that make sense to me. I get that Becky's the bigger star, but if we're trying to make a star out of Lyra, you should treat her like one. I thought that this match was actually significantly better than the match that they had at WrestleMania. It just sort of felt like everyone was clicking, the spots were great, and everyone's chemistry was just sort of working really nice with each other. There was a great Tower of Doom spot, which is always going to get a pop out of me, some great fighting on the outside, but it ultimately came down to Becky Lynch being left on the outside and leaving Lyra Valkyria on her own to eat an oblivion, and we have, again, brand new women's tag team champions in Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the fourth time. Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch were only champions for about, 19 hours? Now, that wasn't it. Yes, we have brand new champions. That's exciting and all. However, the big moment came in the post-match where it looked like Becky Lynch was giving some comforting words to Lyra Valkyria, only to attack Lyra Valkyria, hit her with 3 manhandle slams, and leave her in the ring as she berated her and blamed her for losing. So, folks, we now have a heel Becky Lynch, and I couldn't be happier. This is such a necessary decision to make because the Women's Intercontinental Championship already felt like it was dead in the water. It now has its first proper storyline, its first proper feud, assuming that Becky is going to be going after that Women's Intercontinental Championship. Becky being in this title picture elevates this title so much. I also think it's a good idea to have the tag titles bounce back to Raquel and Liv Morgan because, in my opinion, they're just a better representation of the women's tag team division. A women's tag team division that, yes, is dead, but at the very least, they've been tag teaming with each other for years. Lyra and Becky were just 2 random assortments of Irish women being put together for a tag team, even though they're single stars. So yeah, I'm glad that the Judgment Day has the tag titles because then they can go to NXT and defend them over there, and you can just continue to build this lackluster division around that. Because now this is about the Intercontinental Championship. So all around, new champions and a heel turn, all within the same match. This Raw after Mania is absolutely torching up until this point. And then this Raw after Mania just keeps getting better because we're going to continue to talk about the women, specifically the Women's World Champion Io Sky, who got to go out there and celebrate to a massive ovation. This feud and this match has significantly increased Io Sky's stock, and she is on the precipice of superstardom. Io Sky is currently my favorite women's wrestler on the planet, so you have to just imagine my euphoria, my joy when she was interrupted by my second favorite women's wrestler in the planet right now in Stephanie Vaquer, the NXT Women's Champion. This is a dream scenario for me. This was a dream match that I didn't think was going to happen for the better part of another year at the very least, and yet here we were. And with both women in the ring praising each other, they both decide to have a match to determine who truly is the best women's wrestler on the planet. And boy, what a fantastic match this was. It was such a great technical showcase of both women. We had some great high-flying spots. This was just a minuscule taste of what these two women can put together. Give them 20 minutes in a PLE stage without commercials, and you might legitimately put together the greatest women's match ever in the history of this sport. I know that there were some people bummed that the match ended with shenanigans. The match ends with Roxanne Perez coming in and attacking the champion Io Sky, thus causing a disqualification victory for her. And people were bummed about that they wanted to see the match go through its natural conclusion. But I'm actually happy that they ended it this way because this protected Stephanie Vaquer, who I guess by all logic should have been taking this loss. But this prevented her from taking a loss, and that's good because she has a women's championship title defense literally tomorrow on NXT. But it didn't just end there. This was really interesting because we also had Julia, also from NXT, come out and attack Stephanie Vaquer, which then prompted Rhea Ripley to come out to stop the women from attacking Io Sky. And then we had a little moment between Rhea and Io signifying that we're still going to continue with this feud. So this is interesting because this puts us in a scenario where we kind of have a women's NXT invasion of the main roster. Now, many people, myself included, will tell you that the NXT women's division is the best women's division on the planet. And this was just a little microcosm of it because there's still still so much more talent to explore in NXT when it comes to the women. If I'm looking at this and I'm connecting some dots and trying to figure out what's going to happen out of this, I don't think it's just going to be random matches on NXT and Raw. I think that they're setting up the Women's Evolution 2 pay-per-view that is heavily rumored to happen later in the summer, because they heavily tease not just the going back to Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, but those motherfuckers tease Julia versus Rhea Ripley. They stared each other down. So I'm sure that we'll get more development on this over the next several weeks, but I think that they are setting up the all-women's PLE Evolution for later in June. So this was another fantastic segment, a great, awesome surprise in Stephanie Vaquer, a great match, the surprise of the invasion of the women of NXT, and then the tease to the Women's Evolution PLE. This is awesome so far. We then go to Jey Uso's celebration as your brand new World Heavyweight Champion. And honestly, there's not too much to talk about here because they really didn't do much with this. This was a big celebration moment for Jey Uso, a celebration segment that, in my opinion, made sense. I was cool with the 20 minutes of yeeting because it felt earned. Compare this to the last time that we got this much of a yeet celebration, which was literally 2 days after Jey Uso lost to Gunther at Saturday night's main event. At the very least, this celebration makes sense, and it worked for me. The promo from Jey Uso was rather short. He was basically just talking about the fact that he's worked really hard to finally get to this moment, and the previous video package before Jey Uso's entrance really also demonstrated that as well, showing the history of Jey Uso's legacy in the WWE. So it was simple. They yeeted, they played the music again, Jey Uso is happy, but then we have Sami Zayn's music hits, and I immediately say, this is brilliant. Sami Zayn being Jey Uso's first opponent and first feud for the World Heavyweight Championship is the right call. Coming off the back of WrestleMania, I said that Jey Uso's first title defense should either be Sami Zayn or Braun Breaker. Well, we know what Braun Breaker is doing now. We'll talk about that later on in this video, so that leaves us with Sami Zayn. Now, in this segment, they didn't set up anything. We just had Sami Zayn go out there and celebrate with Jey Uso, but I was always on the edge of my seat. I felt a little bit of a level of uncomfortability seeing everybody celebrate this much without anything bad happening. We even had Jey Uso come out to celebrate and nothing happened. There was a moment where Jey was yeeting on the turnbuckle and Sami was directly behind him, not yeeting. That's where I thought maybe the turn was going to happen, but it didn't. They just continued to celebrate. I do want this match to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn Part 1 is a babyface versus babyface. I could see this being a feud like Cody versus Kevin Owens, where the first match was babyface versus babyface until eventually Kevin Owens had a complete crash out. Maybe this is what happens with Sami Zayn. There isn't much else to talk about, but this segment weirdly worked for me, even though I haven't been a huge fan of Jey Uso's yeeting in the lead up to WrestleMania, but this is earned yeeting, so I'm fine with it. But I still want to see Sami Zayn at some point gun after this World Heavyweight Championship. After what happened with Karrion Kross once WrestleMania ended, I really thought that we were going to get a lot more Karrion Kross on this show, just like pretty much every other episode of Monday Night Raw over the last several months. We only got Karrion Kross in a backstage segment, but the big difference is what once the camera showed Karrion Kross, you could hear the loudest pop of the night come from that crowd. People are behind Karrion Kross. There isn't much to go off of here as of yet, but it was Karrion Kross being angry at AJ Styles for losing to Logan Paul, the YouTuber, for setting back wrestling several years by losing to this guy that isn't one of them, a wrestler. And AJ knows what Karrion is trying to do. He's trying to make him angry. He's trying to make him that mean, evil version of himself, and AJ Styles isn't having it. He says he didn't like what he saw in the mirror when he was that guy several months ago, and he refuses to go back to that. And this is where it got left off. I think that we're going to continue to get more of this at some point or another. I think that we might get maybe a faction forming between Karrion Kross and AJ Styles somewhere down the line. Either way, we're getting more Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is getting his recognition, and that's a good thing. We then have one of the more interesting segments of the night. We have Gunther coming back from commercial break, berating the commentary team, berating Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. He gets into Michael Cole's face, and Michael Cole is trying to say, what do you want us to do? How can we be objective if we can't say the truth and criticize criticize you when you need to be criticized. And then Michael Cole made the mistake by saying, hey, call it what it is, Gunther, but you were the one that tapped out. And then Gunther snapped. He tries to put Michael Cole in a sleeper hold. Pat McAfee comes in with a Superman punch to take out Gunther. Then Gunther puts him in a sleeper hold. And then all of Pat McAfee's friends from the podcast jump the barricade, which, by the way, I thought they were fans for a second. I thought things were going absolutely full anarchy mode there for a second. And then Gunther completely destroys Pat McAfee. He turns Pat McAfee purple with that sleeper hold, and the authorities and Nick Baldus aren't able to remove Gunther from him, and he completely just leaves Pat McAfee for dead as Gunther gets escorted out. Now, the WWE did linger on this for way too long because, yes, I liked the segment, but then they went backstage to show Pat McAfee coughing, and then they showed like 5 replays. I'm exaggerating, but they showed a bunch of replays of this happening multiple times throughout the night. One of the more awesome moments from this segment was the fact that Nick Baldus tells Michael Cole to just leave, to take the rest of the night off. And Michael Cole, like a true badass, says, no, I'm not going to stop a bully from preventing me from doing my job during WrestleMania week. And Michael Cole goes right back out there and continues to commentate the rest of the show with Joe Tessitore. So now the question is, like, what are we doing? What is this? Is this a feud that's going to set up Gunther versus the Pat McAfee squad and Pat McAfee at some point? Or is this just a way to demonstrate that Gunther is losing his mind? He's going to attack people just randomly, seemingly out of nowhere. I personally hope that it ends up being a feud with Pat McAfee. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun. I'm just glad that Gunther isn't immediately going after the World Heavyweight Championship again. I think that these little smaller feuds can get Gunther some good heel heat as he works his way back up to the World Heavyweight Championship. So I'm down for this. This was a lot of fun. Next, it was time for a 50% of a WrestleMania match rematch, that being the match for the Intercontinental Championship between champion Dirty Dominic Mysterio and Penta. And as awesome and as popular as Penta is, right now he pales in comparison to Dominic Mysterio. And that's not just because I love Dominic Mysterio. You guys know I love me some Dirty Dom, but the crowd was the one that was telling the world that Dom is the new it thing. Dom is over. Dom, whether he's trying to be or not, is a top babyface right now, and that to me is crazy. Listen, the match never really got to get going. I don't think that there's too much to talk about here with. They had fine chemistry with each other. We did have a Canadian Destroyer spot, but really this was to set up the finish, which was, of course, a screwy finish because it's Dirty Dominic Mysterio and the rest of the Judgment Day. So, of course, this was going to always be a bit of a screwy finish. We always had in the back of our mind that maybe Finn Balor is going to cost Dirty Dominic Mysterio here, but instead what happens is as Penta is going to the top rope, we have the return of JD McDonough. Another great return here on this episode of Monday Night Raw. He takes out Penta, which opens up the door for Dominic Mysterio to pick up the victory over Penta. So Dom gets to celebrate, and then we also have Finn Balor kind of like being confused. Do I celebrate this? Do I not celebrate this? Fine, JD McDonough's here. Okay, fine, we'll all celebrate this. So there's still a lot going on between Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor that I'm sure will get paid off somewhere later on this year in a match that's going to be highly anticipated. But yeah, the match was okay. I've seen better between these two, but we got the return of JD McDonough. So another great thumbs up for this Raw after Mania. Dude, I'm just realizing that I completely forgot to talk about the return of Rusev. I know why I forgot to talk about it, because for some weird reason, they had Rusev return to the WWE, interrupting a tag team match within a tag team division that is entirely dead. Now, I don't think that Rusev is going to be in the tag team division. I don't think that this is what it signifies, but I just think that this was a lazy, uncreative way to bring back Rusev, because beating down Alpha Academy is something that they've done in the WWE a bajillion times. There's nothing special about beating down Tozawa and Otis at this point. Look, at least the crowd was hot for it, and it's awesome to see Rusev back in the WWE, but if they're already being this uncreative with his return and having him beat down Alpha Academy, it does kind of raise some concerns for me as to the creativity for his full-fledged return. Rusev does look like $1 million. I just don't think that this was the best way to bring him back into the WWE. I think it was the best night to do it because it was a hot crowd that really loved having Rusev back, and I love having Rusev back after not seeing him on WWE TV for many years. I just hope that this run this time around is significantly better. And now let's talk about the thing that everyone is talking about, the ending segment, the segment that I think is gonna go down as one of the most important moments in Monday Monday Night Raw history, especially if this ends up creating a faction on the level of Evolution, which people are already comparing it to. Because we had Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman go out there, they start cutting a promo, and then pretty much immediately get interrupted by CM Punk. CM Punk and Seth Rollins brawl. The CM Punk gets the better of Seth Rollins, then CM Punk tries to gun after Paul Heyman, and then because of that, Seth Rollins is able to take out CM Punk, stomps him, and then leaves him for dead. And then Paul Heyman grabs the mic and says, what's about to happen will be something that will be felt all the way right through to WrestleMania 42, which left me really confused, because then we had the music of Roman Reigns hit, and then Roman Reigns comes out, then he spears the hell out of Seth Rollins, and then he's about to take out the wise man after hitting him with a Superman punch, and is setting up a spear, and as he ooh-ahs and goes for the spear, a hooded individual, who for a second I thought was Paul Heyman, by the way, spears the ever-living Christ out of Roman Reigns, and it is revealed to be none other than Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker then proceeds to destroy Roman Reigns even more by spearing him through the barricade, and then Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker bring both guys back into the ring, and they stomp CM Punk, and then they stop Roman Reigns, and then they all celebrate to end the show, thus signifying the birth of a brand new faction and potentially telling us that Braun Breaker is the brand new Paul Heyman guy. And holy hell, does this have a lot of ramifications for the future of the WWE. Braun Breaker is now a main eventer. He is completely out of the mid-card picture. He is now about to have a rocket strapped to his ass right to the stratosphere. Braun Breaker is going from the IC title picture to now working alongside Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Paul Heyman. If that isn't the ultimate vote of confidence that this guy is going to be your future face of the company, that he is going to be one of the pillars holding up this company together, I don't know what else is. And of course, the big talking point is the faction, because immediately this brings back memories of Evolution. Triple H being Seth Rollins, and I guess you could say that Ric Flair is the Paul Heyman of this group. We have Braun Breaker, who very much resembles Batista, and that leaves presumably one more member if we're trying to redo Evolution again. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to redo Evolution again. At the end of the day, Evolution worked at making two brand new uber megastars, and they were led by Triple H, who, by the way, is the one creating all of this. Me personally, I would add another member to this faction, and for me, it's between two people: Ethan Page from NXT or Austin Theory, currently in the doldrums of the awful Raw Tag Team division. It would be an entire repackage of Austin Theory, but you know what else was an entire repackage? Randy Orton when he got added to Evolution, Batista when he got added to Evolution. They were both complete nobodies, just sort of treading water until Triple H brought them in. And there's no one with more talent treading more water right now than Austin Theory. At least that's my theory. Game theory. It's sorry, RIP Matt Pat. Look, this segment was absolutely fantastic. This is so good, and like I said, just fundamentally changes where things can go from here. This changes where I think things can go for Mania 42, for SummerSlam, or as early as Backlash, because are we gonna get Roman and CM Punk teaming up to go up against Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker? I feel like that's the play, and if you do that match, that's the perfect place to bring in a new member. Overall, this Raw after WrestleMania was genuinely perfect. Aside from maybe the odd place to re-debut Rusev, there was nothing to dislike about this. I think that this is going to go down as one of the best Raw after WrestleManias of all time. You know what? This almost felt like WrestleMania Night 3 with how just jam-packed with returns, title changes, heel turns, surprise returns. We then had the formation of a brand new main event faction. There was everything that you needed to get out of a Raw after WrestleMania. So this Raw after WrestleMania, folks, gets 2 giant thumbs up from me. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching this review of Monday Night Raw. Again, this is not something that I would normally do, but do check out the Patreon if you want the more fledged out version of this. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.